If you've been walking around for the past year, assuming your heart is fine simply because nobody has told you otherwise, how confident are you that you truly understand the signals your body may already be sending you right now? Not what a random article headline says, not what your neighbor told you after his last doctor's visit. I mean, actually understand it. The difference between normal tiredness and dangerous fatigue. The difference between getting older and getting weaker because your heart is under strain. The difference between a harmless flutter and a rhythm problem that should never be ignored. And the difference between discomfort you can discuss at your next appointment and symptoms that mean you should get urgent help immediately. Because most people do not know that difference. And when I ask them, smart people, careful people, independent people, people who manage their homes, their finances, their schedules, they pause. That pause tells me everything. Because heart problems do not always arrive like a dramatic movie scene with a hand on the chest and somebody collapsing to the floor. Very often, they arrive quietly. They arrive disguised as fatigue. They arrive as swollen ankles. They arrive as needing 3 pillows to sleep comfortably. They arrive as getting winded halfway up a staircase you used to climb without thinking. They arrive as a strange pressure you dismiss because it came and went. And by the time many people take those signs seriously, their body has been trying to warn them for weeks, months, sometimes longer. Today, I'm going to change that. My name is Dr. Elias Novak, and this channel exists for one reason: to give you the kind of clear, practical, honest health information that too often gets squeezed into a rushed appointment and never fully explained. By the time this video ends, you're going to understand the most commonly ignored heart warning signs, what they may mean, when they are manageable, and when they are dangerous enough that waiting is the wrong decision. And I want to start with a man named Richard, because his story sets up everything we need to talk about. Richard was 72 years old, a retired accountant, organized, disciplined, and not the kind of person who ignored his health. At least, not intentionally. He didn't smoke, he kept his appointments. He took his medications exactly as prescribed. He wasn't reckless, he was careful. But over the course of about 6 months, his life began to shrink. He noticed that walking from the parking lot to the grocery store suddenly felt longer. He started pausing at the top of the stairs. He began sleeping with an extra pillow because lying flat felt uncomfortable, though he didn't think much of it at first. By late afternoon, his socks were leaving deep marks around his ankles. He told himself it was age. He told himself everyone slows down. He told himself he was just out of shape. What frightened him was not one dramatic event. It was the accumulation of small ones. One evening, after bringing in groceries, he sat down and realized his heart was pounding harder than usual, and he was more breathless than he had any right to be. That was the moment fear finally broke through the explanations he had been giving himself. He thought, maybe this is just what getting older feels like. It wasn't. Richard was developing signs of heart failure. And the reason I'm telling you that is because his first warnings were not cinematic. They were subtle, familiar, easy to excuse. The same kind of symptoms thousands of people are brushing off right now. That is where I want to begin. Because one of the most misunderstood ideas in all of heart health is this: your heart does not always fail loudly. Sometimes it struggles quietly first. Let's talk about shortness of breath, because that is one of the biggest signs people minimize. Here's what many people assume. If they can still talk, still move around, still make it through the day, then the breathlessness can't be that serious. That assumption gets people into trouble. If you notice that everyday tasks are taking more out of you than they used to, getting dressed, carrying laundry, walking to the mailbox, climbing stairs, making the bed, that change matters. If you find yourself pausing more often, breathing harder after mild activity, or avoiding movement because you don't like how it feels, your body may be revealing something important. Now let me be clear, not every episode of breathlessness means heart disease. But when the heart is not pumping efficiently, fluid can back up toward the lungs, and that can make breathing feel more difficult, especially during activity, when lying flat, or suddenly at night. Some people describe it as not being able to catch a satisfying breath. Others say they just feel air hungry. Some start sleeping propped up and don't even realize that change itself is meaningful. That was Richard. He didn't say, "I can't breathe." He said, "I'm more comfortable with another pillow." That's how subtle the early language can be. And this is where people make a mistake that seems reasonable, but isn't. They adapt instead of investigate. They walk slower. They rest more. They avoid stairs. They stop going out as much. They shrink their world so they don't have to face the symptom directly. Please hear me when I say this. Adaptation can hide progression. If your breathing has changed, your body deserves an explanation. Now let's talk about swelling, because this is another sign that gets dismissed far too often. A little puffiness by the end of the day, tight shoes, socks leaving indentations, ankles that look different in the evening than they did in the morning. People blame salt, heat, age, sitting too long. And sometimes they're right, but sometimes swelling in the feet, ankles, legs, or even the abdomen is telling you that fluid is building up because the heart is not moving blood as efficiently as it should. When the pumping system weakens, fluid does not always stay where it belongs. It can begin to collect in the tissues. That can show up as swelling and very often as weight gain that seems to come out of nowhere. This is one of the reasons I tell people not to ignore rapid, unexplained weight changes, especially over a short period of time. If your body weight jumps and your habits have not changed much, that may not be fat. It may be fluid. And here's the dangerous part. People often wait for pain before they act. But fluid buildup does not need to hurt in order to matter. Richard's ankles didn't hurt. His breathing wasn't dramatic. He wasn't collapsing. He was just slowly becoming less capable. And because it was gradual, it felt normal. That is exactly why you must respect gradual decline. Sudden symptoms get attention. Gradual symptoms get excuses. Now I want to move to another category that creates enormous confusion: chest discomfort. Notice I did not say chest pain. That word alone causes people to miss what's happening because they imagine one specific sensation: sharp, crushing, unbearable. But heart-related discomfort can be pressure, heaviness, squeezing, fullness, burning, tightness, or simply a strange sensation that feels wrong. Some people feel it in the center of the chest. Some feel it on the left side. Some barely feel it in the chest at all, and notice it more in the jaw, back, neck, stomach, shoulder, or one or both arms. And here's something critically important. A serious heart problem does not always begin with maximum intensity. Sometimes it starts mild, comes and goes, or shows up during activity and improves with rest. That does not make it safe to ignore. If you develop chest discomfort, especially if it lasts more than a few minutes, returns, spreads, or comes with shortness of breath, sweating, nausea, lightheadedness, or unusual weakness, do not gamble on it. Do not sit there trying to be brave. Do not drive yourself if you think something serious is happening. Do not wait until tomorrow to see if it settles down. Minutes matter, and I want to say something especially important for women and for the families who love them. Heart symptoms do not always look textbook. Some women experience chest discomfort, yes, but others may notice unusual fatigue, nausea, shortness of breath, upper back discomfort, or a heavy, unwell feeling that they can't quite explain. That is one reason people delay. The symptom does not look like what they expected. If your body is telling you something is deeply off, respect that message. Now let's talk about palpitations, because this is another area where people either panic unnecessarily or stay calm when they shouldn't. A skipped beat here and there can happen for many reasons: stress, caffeine, poor sleep, dehydration, even normal variations in heart rhythm that are harmless. But a heart that suddenly feels fast, irregular, fluttery, or thumpy in a way that is new, persistent, or associated with dizziness, weakness, shortness of breath, confusion, or chest pressure deserves attention. I want you to meet Margaret. Margaret was 69, active, socially engaged, the kind of woman who always kept moving. One afternoon, she noticed what she described as a butterfly trapped in her chest. Not pain, not exactly, just a strange internal fluttering. It came and went. She thought maybe it was anxiety or too much coffee. Then she noticed something else. On the days it happened, she felt washed out, slightly shaky, a little lightheaded when standing. By evening, she was more tired than usual. Still, because the sensation wasn't dramatic, and because it would sometimes stop on its own, she dismissed it. What Margaret was experiencing was atrial fibrillation, often called AFib, an irregular rhythm that can sometimes cause fatigue, fluttering in the chest, dizziness, weakness, shortness of breath, or no symptoms at all. That last part matters more than people realize. No symptoms at all. Some rhythm problems do not announce themselves clearly, and yet they still carry risk. This is why I tell people not to judge seriousness solely by discomfort. Some of the most important heart issues are dangerous not because they are painful, but because they are easy to ignore. And here I need to draw a very sharp line. If you have chest pain or pressure with an irregular heartbeat, or you feel faint, severely short of breath, or suddenly unwell in a way that feels alarming, that is not the time to monitor yourself for the next several hours. That is the time to get emergency help. Let's move to fatigue, because fatigue is one of the most abused words in medicine. Everybody is tired. That's true, but not all tiredness is the same. There is ordinary tiredness, the kind that follows a poor night's sleep or a busy day. And then there is the fatigue that feels disproportionate, the kind that sneaks into daily life and takes ordinary tasks away from you, the kind that makes you sit down halfway through something simple, the kind that leaves your legs feeling weak on a walk you used to handle without a second thought. When the heart cannot pump efficiently enough to meet the body's needs, your tissues may not receive blood flow as effectively as they should. That can translate into a level of fatigue that feels vague but real. Many people don't describe it as heart symptoms. They describe it as losing stamina, losing sharpness, losing their edge. And because that happens gradually, it often gets filed under aging. I want to challenge that. Aging can change capacity, yes, but unexplained decline always deserves curiosity. If your energy, endurance, or recovery ability has changed meaningfully, don't just label it age and move on. Now let's talk about one of the most dangerous emotional habits I see in heart health: normalization. Normalization is when a symptom happens often enough that you stop being alarmed by it. The stairs always leave me winded. My ankles always swell by evening. I always get that pressure after walking fast. My heart always races a little at night. I always feel dizzy when I stand. The repetition creates false comfort. But repeated symptoms are not always reassuring. Sometimes repetition is exactly the proof that something needs to be addressed. And dizziness is a perfect example. That brief wave of lightheadedness when you stand up. That moment where you reach for the counter. That little tilt in the room you brush off in 5 seconds. People minimize it because it passes quickly. But dizziness can reflect a change in blood pressure, rhythm, hydration, medication effect, or heart performance. And in older adults especially, even a few seconds of dizziness can change the direction of a life. One fall, one fracture, one hospitalization. That is all it takes. So no, recurring dizziness is not automatically a crisis, but it is never meaningless. Now here is something else many people do not hear often enough. Illness changes the rules. If you are vomiting, having diarrhea, sweating heavily in extreme heat, barely eating, or not able to keep fluids down, your heart and blood pressure can behave very differently under those conditions. Medications that usually work well may need to be reviewed. Symptoms you normally tolerate may feel much worse. Dehydration can intensify weakness, lightheadedness, low blood pressure, and rhythm-related issues. Your body is not static. Context matters. This is why having a plan matters. What should you do if you get sick? Which symptoms should trigger a call? When does dizziness become urgent? When does shortness of breath cross the line? These are not dramatic questions. These are practical safety questions. And the people who do best with heart conditions are often not the people who know the most complicated medical terms. They are the people who know what to watch for, what not to ignore, and when to act. Now let me address something that creates huge confusion for people trying to monitor their heart at home: One reading is not the whole story. One high blood pressure reading after bad sleep, stress, or pain does not tell the whole truth. One day of ankle swelling after a long car ride does not tell the whole truth. One strange heartbeat after too much caffeine does not always tell the whole truth. Patterns matter more than isolated moments. A method matters more than panic. Track your symptoms. Notice timing. Notice what brings them on. Notice whether they are getting more frequent, more intense, or easier to trigger. Notice whether they are affecting your daily life more than they did a month ago. Bring patterns to your doctor, not just fear. That changes the quality of the conversation completely. And if you're still with me right now, I want you to pause for a moment and think honestly about this. Have you normalized a symptom you should have investigated? Shortness of breath, swelling, pressure, fatigue, fluttering, dizziness, reduced stamina. Because the truth is, many people do not miss heart warning signs because they never had them. They miss them because they renamed them. They called them age, stress, poor sleep, being out of shape, a busy week, salt, anxiety, nothing. And sometimes, that reinterpretation costs them months or years of better health. So let me give you the practical takeaway I want burned into your memory. If a symptom is new, if it is worsening, if it is recurring, or if it is changing what you can comfortably do in daily life, it deserves attention. If you have chest discomfort, shortness of breath, sweating, nausea, lightheadedness, unusual weakness, pain spreading into the arm, jaw, back, or neck, or any symptom that makes you think something is seriously wrong, get emergency help immediately. And if your symptoms are quieter but persistent, swelling, exercise intolerance, needing extra pillows, unusual fatigue, fluttering in the chest, repeated dizziness, do not suffer in silence and do not self-diagnose from guesswork. Talk to your doctor. Ask direct questions. Tell the story clearly. Describe what has changed. Do not minimize it while you're saying it. Your heart does not have to fail dramatically to need help. Sometimes the earliest mercy is simply paying attention before the problem gets louder. My name is Dr. Elias Novak, and if there is one thing I hope this video gives you, it is not fear. It is awareness. Because awareness is what turns vague worry into useful action. Awareness is what catches problems earlier. Awareness is what keeps people from losing time they didn't need to lose. Your body is speaking all the time. The question is whether you know how to listen before it